Welcome to Mediumship Moments with psychic medium Kim Durham. Join her as she shares her personal journey with mediumship, connects with your loved ones, and discusses topics dealing with spirituality.
Welcome to Mediumship Moments. I'm your host, Kim Durham, second-gen psychic medium and paranormal investigator. And we're going to talk about psychic imprints, whether it's residual energy or intelligent presence. Now, there's a lot of debate about this in the paranormal world. And so I thought with Bootober coming up, let's delve into it and give you a little bit of information. So I have a question for you. Have you ever wandered in to a location that was connected to a tragic event? Have you ever walked on God forbid, a place, whether it's a historic battle site, into a home where, maybe somebody was unalived, or you've walked into a place that you had no idea what exactly transpired, but you felt this heaviness. You couldn't explain it, right? It just, something was off about the atmosphere. So most of us have, experienced this at some point in our life. But what it's fascinating about this is that people have described this for centuries. This isn't just something new because of the boom of paranormal investigating, which brings us to the topic of psychic imprint theory. Now, the theory suggests that there's an intensely emotional experiences such as trauma or joy or grief or even profound love that leaves an energetic, if you will, thumbprint or imprint at a place or on an object. In other words, some believe that powerful moments don't simply disappear when they're over. Instead, they leave behind, if you will, echoes that linger long after all the people who were involved in that event are gone. So this idea sits at the heart of many paranormal theories, and it's often used to explain haunted locations, emotionally charged environments, and unexplained experiences. So within paranormal research, these experiences are typically divided into two very different categories: residual energy or intelligent presence. So the distinction between them is significant, right? Residual energy is like a recording that plays over and over again, a loop, if you will, of energy. And like, for instance, when I walked into the Hurley mansion and first time there, didn't look at any history, was there to meet a few people about the possibility of doing something good for the town I live in and using my ability. And when I walked in, I heard babies crying. I clearly heard babies crying. Well, here, the Hurley House was previously used not once but twice as a hospital for women. Okay, so I was hearing what I believe is a psychic imprint of residual energy and that loop of babies crying. Right. So, they're also, but see, here's the difference, right? That's residual, and energy. Intelligent is where the presence, where there's an actual, they demonstrate awareness. It's the best way, or an interaction. Again, at the Scottish Rite, when I asked Spirit Box, how many spirits are here with us today? And I heard a young man's voice go, well, there's 4 of us. Like, he was very excited that we were going to talk to all of them. So understanding the difference is important about this conversation, right? Residual versus intelligent psychic imprint theory. Now, I'm a history geek, so let's take a quick little history guide, if you will, about this. So the belief that place can hold memories is far older than modern ghost busting or even paranormal television. Ancient civilizations around the world believed that land could absorb emotion, sacred rituals, and significant events, right? The American Indians have sacred lands where there were spiritual practices done. Certain locations were considered spiritually charged, like those Native American lands, either because of extraordinary experiences or that they occurred because they believed to hold lasting energy. So, as spiritualism, now that's a form of religion that gained a lot of notoriety during after right around the Civil War, through the early 20th century. Um, but it was popular in Europe and then came here. Investigators began trying to categorize paranormal experiences rather than just simply labeling them a ghost. It was from that spiritualism of connecting with your loved ones. And again, that started during the Civil War with trying to connect with loved ones who had crossed here in the United States. Now, it was during this period that the idea of residual hauntings became widely discussed during that time period. And the theory proposed is that natural materials. Now I'm going to skip into this. So during the 20th century, right, we had another theory that emerged that would become best known for explanation of haunted locations, that residual energy, that imprint, that psychic imprint, and this is called the stone tape theory. Now, this theory proposes that natural elements retain energy, such as stone. Now, there's a belief that limestone is very, very good, or that area has, it's not only great for making bourbon, just saying, but it actually retains psychic imprints or residual energy. Wood, even water. I know water to be very, if you will, a bit of a battery. Anytime I go to any locations close to water, it really seems to amplify, if you will, the type of interactions that we have or paranormal experiences we have. So the theory, right, again, is that the stone, the wood, the stone tape theory, or the water can somehow record emotional energy. The same way magnetic tape, like a old school OG magnetic tape, could tape records. Okay, so according to the theory, under certain conditions, these emotional recordings might play back, creating what people interpret as hauntings. Okay, so although the stone tape theory has never scientifically been proven, it remains one of the most influential ideas of paranormal research because of this. The sites and the intersection, right? It's between psychology, spiritualism, science fiction, and the unexplained. But like I said, I've been doing paranormal investigations since I've been 15, and that's quite some time, and over 40 years actually. And I can tell you what I sense and what I feel, and when these different areas, such as Devil's Den. I mean, not only were you with stone, but you're in a historically charged area called Gettysburg. So let's talk about the residual energy and the replay theory. Okay, another type of theory. Now, residual energy is often described as the most common type of haunting. Then, and that would be, interestingly, most paranormal investigators don't consider this a true spirit at all. Again, it's the loop of energy that continues to play over. Instead, they describe it as just that, an energetic replay. So imagine a moment that's so intensely imprinted, such as Gettysburg battlefield, when we heard the boom, 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 boom of cannonball fire. That emotional moment continues to replay itself. It's like an echo, right? Or perhaps watching the same, if you will, movie over and over again. We all have our favorite movies, but, again, that's the residual hauntings that tend to be repetitive and predictable. It's a loop of energy, they believe, actually just an imprint in that location because it's so emotionally charged, just playing over and over again. So I'll give you an example. People often report, have you ever heard, right? Footsteps? If they talk about a place that's haunted, but they just hear footsteps up and down the hallway. Okay. It's just footsteps. It's a loop of that. Door slamming at the same time every night or every day or just the same time. A voice calling out. Or a shadowy figure walking down the hallway. Same location, this seat. Again, this is what people report to be residual energy, a loop, if you will. The footsteps don't change. The apparition doesn't react to any paranormal investigators or anybody there on the physical realm. They just go off and do their thing. So, and like I said, they don't respond to any attempts of communication. It's just simply the same experience playing over and over again. And even, it again, some true, I don't want to say true, but some of your OG paranormal investigators, it's just a loop of energy. It's not quite a haunting. You know, and we've all been to places, whether it's our childhood home or those places that are emotionally charged for us, that can clearly have an effect on us emotionally. So are we picking up the emotion of the place, or are we reacting to the emotion of the place? Again, all these theories. And it's just interesting which one um, resonates as far as the psychic imprint theory with us. It's really fascinating. Now, to switch gears, we're going to talk about the intelligent presence when something responds. Instead of it just being walking up and down the steps, it doesn't react to anybody on the paranormal world investigating. This is when something responds, right? This is why we call it an intelligent response or presence. This is where the conversation becomes really intriguing. I get a kick out of this for many of us, and also some of us very unsettling. It can be. Unlike residual energy, an intelligent presence is believed to involve awareness, right? Like I asked the question, the Scottish Rite, and we when we were at the Hill Manor, White Hill Manor, and Aubrey was speaking in French, asked a question in French, and through the spirit box, a response in French came through. It was pretty amazing. So, again, that's an example of receiving a direct response to a question. There's also what ghost hunters love to do is two bits and a shave when they go, and then they ask spirit to, and the spirit knocks twice. That's pretty remarkable to see that happen. Objects could move after a conversation, or voices reacting emotionally to who's present. When we were investigating a home in Woodbury, we went down in the basement, and 3 spirits came through. They were all different. There was Jim, there was Jane, there was Spencer. And they all touted different timelines of when they were alive. And it was truly, truly amazing to see. So really the key difference between this is adaptability over intelligent versus residual, right? Residual repeats. We just remember it this way. Residual repeats, intelligent presence responds. And that's the distinction. It makes all the difference over the psychic imprint of energy. So we're naturally wired, right, to recognize these things. And it's a difference between hearing unexplained footsteps or feeling as though something's intentionally walked towards you. Had that feeling happen. So why is psychic imprint so hot again? It's becoming very popular theory again. And over the past years, the major resurgence, they believe, not only because of paranormal investigators in haunted locations, but there's a spiritual awakening happening, right? Energy sensitivity, and it's been really popular on the talk, YouTube, Reddit, podcast, hello, and even streaming television. So part of that renewed interest comes from the broader fascination with energy healing, Reiki, manifestation, spiritual wellness, and even, this is interesting, trauma and emotional healing. The conversations about trauma have made psychic imprint even more relatable. So today we understand that traumatic experiences can leave a lasting experience or lasting effects on both the brain and the body. So it makes you wonder, right? If trauma can leave an imprint on a person, could intense emotional experiences somehow leave an imprint on a place? One would think so. But science doesn't really support this conclusion. So, again, the question points to curiosity at the crossroads of psychology, spiritualism, and mystery. So I'm going to touch upon something else that could have energy imprinted on it: haunted objects and emotional attachment. So psychic imprint theory doesn't just apply to locations. It applies in many cultures to personal belongings, whether it's jewelry, photographs, clothing, family heirlooms, even dolls. Annabelle. They can carry emotional significance from the people who own them. So paranormal theories that even go a little bit further suggest that the emotional energy that remains to certain objects perhaps is the one reason why stories involving Annabelle, haunted dolls, antique mirrors, old houses, and mysterious artifacts continue to capture our emotions and our imaginations because of that psychic imprint of the energy. So whether it's symbolic or supernatural, they tap into an ancient belief that some experiences may never fully disappear. All legitimate possibilities, right? The human brain is remarkable and skilled at filling in missing information and creating meaning from uncertain experiences. It's called paragiglia. And it's when someone shows you a picture of a haunted house and just you see the woman at the window on the third floor, and you're like, I don't see it. But other people do. Other people do. Even skeptics generally agree that on one important that our surroundings absolutely influence how we feel. But paragiglia is your body's way of making sense from something that doesn't make sense. Some people believe spirit boxes are part of that paragiglia where we are hearing something that's not actually there. That's why when I do larger investigations, I ask, did you hear that? Tell me what you heard, meaning to the audience. So it's interesting, right? All of these things shape our emotional responses. So even if psychic imprint theory isn't paranormal, the effect that it has on our places that in our mind is undeniable. It is real, and it's shown. So the bigger question is perhaps the most, if you will, important factor of psychic imprint is that could it be possible that it's not all ghost? That it's memory? I know, I'm making you think, pew, right? It just bodes to think that it could be beyond paranormal. Do powerful experiences truly disappear? Maybe not. Can places somehow preserve pieces of history? I believe they can. In fact, I was down in Lewis, Delaware, um, walking about the historical museum. And the psychic imprints I was picking up in those places, others were verifying. Shout out to you all at First State Paranormal. Rachel, you were lovely. Terry, you were fantastic. And Lisa, thank you so much. So, again, does emotion leave traces behind in ways that we don't understand yet? Or perhaps the biggest question of all, what is consciousness? Right? We're still trying to figure that out, especially after death. So despite all the studies for centuries, we still don't have a complete answer over this. Maybe it's why stories about hauntings continue to endure. Beneath every ghost story lies a deeply human question about memory, about loss, and what remains after that experience has ended. Scientific and skeptical perspectives, point to a couple of possibilities. Infrasound, which is a sound that's below the human brain, ear, I should say, 20 megahertz. So, electromagnetic fields can play absolutely. It's one of the reasons why we do a sweep when we do paranormal investigations that can have effects on the mind, what you're perceiving energetically. Some people talk about sleep paralysis, anxiety. All of these other factors can play a role into what we perceive at a location. It's not always haunted. So how I want to wrap this up for you all is whether the psychic imprint theory is paranormal, psychological, spiritual, or just simply symbolic in some way, it continues right to capture our or challenge our belief systems. And most of us have walked into a place that's been unsettling or peaceful or somehow comforting or scared. So could it be echoes of the past? Or could it be at this point, no one can say for certainty, where psychology ends and paranormal begins, right? And perhaps that mystery is exactly what keeps us asking this question. Because in the end, some psychic imprint theory invites us to consider one haunting possibility. What if a place remembers us long after we've left them? So, pretty interesting, right? The psychic imprint theory, residual versus intelligent responses, and just keep an open mind about all of this. Again, I appreciate you listening to Mediumship Moments. I'm your host, Kim Durham, second-gen psychic medium and paranormal investigator. And as always, keep chatting with your angels because they can hear you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time for another episode of Mediumship Moments. If you enjoyed this episode of Kim's podcast, check her out on Instagram and TikTok at Kim Durham Medium.